Okay. Welcome to another episode of Building Brilliance Book Club. I'm your host, Brian Wilson. We're doing something a little bit different. This is June. June's Father's Day. Father's Day is a big thing to me. You know, it means a lot to me. And I have been interviewing and talking to different men about fatherhood, what it means to them, the history of Father's Day. I wrote an article for my website about Father's Day, and I've been really trying to promote Father's Day. We did a contest on one of my websites about Father's Day. Love my neighbors. So right now I'm interviewing my stepson. His name is Colby Mills King, and I wanted to introduce him, ask him a few questions about Father's Day. Colby, take a minute to introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, so my name is Kobe Mills King. I'm 28 years old, born and raised in South Jersey. Love the neighbors too.
Love the neighbors.
So I grew up pretty much in this area, bounced back and forth between Jersey and Philly most of my life. Experienced a lot, met a lot of great people during that time. I ended up going to school in South Jersey at Winslow Township High School, and was blessed enough to go to Drexel University and earn my degree in my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. So now I work as an application developer for Accenture, working from home. So yeah, really excited for the interview.
Excellent. So we're going to jump right into this. So my first question for you, Colby, is what does Father's Day mean to you personally, and how has your perspective evolved over time?
Yeah, so Father's Day for me, when I hear that, I immediately think of my own dad. And I'm a dad myself, but immediately I think outwardly. You know, I think of you, I think of my dad, I think of all the the men that have inspired me over my life. And it's all about appreciating them, making sure that they're seen and valued. I just want them to know that they're, that they mean something, that they had, significant role in my life. I get reminded of Father's Day every day when I look at my son. And, for me, it's not about, I feel unconditional love from him. But when I think about fathers, it's more the role that I play as a dad, rather than like expecting any gifts or anything like that. It's just, okay, just a reminder, the day my life changed and, the role I play for the rest of my life. So immediately I'm thinking about, how I can appreciate the fathers in my life and what they mean to me. I'm thinking outwardly more than inwardly in a way.
Yeah.
I guess I expected that. I expect, anything, or I'm thinking about what I could do for others almost immediately.
That's
as a
interesting.
dad myself. Yeah.
That's good because the origin of Father's Day for us, Pop was a Rolling Stone. That was the origin of Father's Day. We got that one song. So we're trying to change the narrative and the conversation and the meaning behind Father's Day. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your input, and I appreciate you doing this for me, for Building Brilliance for my audience. So my next question for you is, how do you navigate the challenging stereotypes about Black fatherhood? I mean, there's always this, looming stereotype about absent fathers and fathers being incarcerated, and they having a bunch of kids all over the place. So both within your family and in society at large, how do you challenge those stereotypes?
Yeah. When I was a kid, one thing I always would do, I learned a lot from my parents. I learned a lot from you and just other father figures in my life. I would always try to, take away like the good pieces from what I learned and what I experienced, and didn't want to, continue any bad habits. And I remember times as a kid where I didn't feel seen or didn't feel heard, as a man. So I wanted to be a type of father that was present. My son, I only have, one child. So it's like constantly showing up, even when I'm tired, just still giving, what I have. So in terms of like breaking the narrative, I think I just, be myself.
Right.
I'm very family driven, person. So for me, like family is everything. I always show up. There's often times where I'm exhausted and, might not have the energy to, but, I still, find a way.
Right.
And, I'm thankful for that. I think one of the most important things for a dad is to be there.
Yeah.
I'm going to every karate practice, every soccer practice, every teacher conference, anything just to show him, that he matters and that he means something. Because it's important to have that figure.
Yeah.
And not only have that figure, but have that support.
Yeah.
You know, in the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
When it talks about, you know, a lot of Black fathers that are incarcerated, you know, I communicate that to my son and
Mm-hmm.
you know, also other fathers, and I say if I, you know, have certain actions, you know, I wouldn't be here
Right.
if I act a certain way. So it's like leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm
Mm-hmm.
teaching my son, you know, what it means to be accountable. You know, what it means to be consistent, what it means to show up for your family. So
Right.
every day, not only am I instilling these things to him, I'm also showing that example, and hope to, you know, spread that light of, you know, the joy of being a father as well to other fathers and also to him. And I think a lot of people come to me and they talk about how beautiful, you know, my father relationship is with my son,
Right.
and you know, they love how I am with him. I'm not shy about him. I always have him by my side. You know, I can
Mm-hmm.
sit down and have conversations with him, you know, man to man. He's a
Right.
young man, but it's important to be there, you know, and lead by example, not just say it.
Not just say it.
You know?
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Being present
Mm-hmm.
is huge. I mean, you know, even sharing that with my own daughter, you know, I missed one doctor's appointment when she was growing up, and I'm still mad about that. Like, where the heck was I?
Yeah.
So yeah, I understand that. Always
Yeah.
wanting to be present, be on the scene. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Make sure she knows, you know, that you're there and giving
Right.
her that support. So that's good.
To add on to
Go.
that, one thing I think is important to show like the joy and beauty of fatherhood.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not shy about it at all. You know, like when I show up to events, I'm not just sitting in the background in the corner. You know, I'm
Right.
cheering on my son.
Right.
You know, I'm showing up. I'm talking to his teachers. You know, I'm engaging with, you know, his friends' parents.
Mm-hmm.
And even like just online, like I'm happy to be a dad.
Right.
So I'm constantly showing people like, yeah, this is what it could look like. You know, this is what happiness looks like. This is what a, you know, healthy relationship looks like. You know, so it's like, you know, people can see that.
Right.
You know, you have that visibility. I'm not shy about that.
That's very good.
Yeah.
That's very good in showing up and being present, especially for the kids that are watching that don't have a dad present. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, they look at you like, wow. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a miss out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a real miss out. So seeing that and being present is all the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even to add on that too, Brian, I have a lot of friends that, you know, want to be a dad one day, or some that, you know, might have a kid on the way and they'll ask me for advice, or like, you know, they just get excited. We can resonate on that type of topic,
right? That's a whole
and you can
different
learn
level.
from other dads.
Yeah, you
it's like,
can.
you know, a lot of conversation that we had, or you know, just laughs or just sharing experiences like with our kids. You know, I think it helps as well, and it gets to the community aspect.
Right.
You know, because fatherhood is not just, you know, one person. It is a lot of people involved in it. A lot of things you can learn from. So,
that it takes a village is a real statement.
yeah,
You know, it's
sure.
a real statement. You
Right.
know, because I mean, just like, you know, you learn from me, I learn from you. You know, and I mean, I'm still, you know, learning.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a new challenge every day. You know, what lessons or values did you learn from your own father or father figure, and how do you hope to pass those on to the next generation?
Yeah, I think with my dad, he's somebody who always puts family first, no matter what. I watched him like break his back for his mom, his sister, just all different aspects of family and friends growing up, and I always had that reciprocated. So it's, you know, constantly always trying to do the right thing, no matter what. Not necessarily expecting that in return, but doing it that's because you believe that's the right way to be. I watched him put family first. I watched, you know, family and friends kind of turn their back on him when he didn't really do anything, but still get up the next day and do what you have to do.
Yeah.
So you know, taught me a lot about like resilience, being there for family. You know, not doing things because you're expecting a result. So I learned a lot about, you know, how to love unconditionally, how to be there, even though people might not be there for you. I watched, you know, him show up and go all out of his way for other people's birthdays, or something in the house stop working, and for his birthday he might not even get a text message from the same people.
Oh wow.
You know, and it's sad, but you know, it tells you that sometimes, you know, as a man, you know, you can't always expect people to check in on you. Sometimes there's going to be, you know, some harder days where you got to lock in and, you know, do what needs to be done regardless of how it might be perceived, or you know, without a result.
That's real.
Yeah, at the same time, when I talk about the importance of showing up, like my dad was the same way for me. Like never really missed a practice. You know, he would always drive me to every event. you
Oh
know,
man, that's great.
wake up super early in the morning, but still be there after school to pick me up. So it's like
Okay.
still valuing your family,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how you feel, you know, showing, you know, being there, being present. Yeah, I learned a lot from him, you know, just being, you know, present and tapping into that extra gear.
That
My
that
Yeah.
kick, man. That kick make a big difference, you know?
Yeah. You know, I feel like a lot of fathers are the anchors of a family.
Yeah.
You know, so they keep people together, you know, they
Mm-hmm.
keep things grounded, they keep things, you know, safe, protected, provided for. You know, without that you kind of lose that stability, you know,
You
you,
can,
you can
yeah.
lose that
Yeah, you
foundation
can lose that
in the
footing.
family. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that too is even on the hard days, you know, you could be there and be your best, you know, give everything you got.
Mm-hmm.
My dad used to always tell me I used to, as a kid, I wanted to be just like my dad. Like, you know, most kids, you know, I
Right.
want to be just like
Right.
him. And he was always like, you know, I want you to be better than me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want your life to be easier than mine that I had growing up, or
Yeah.
I want you to be more successful. You
Right.
know, so that drive of always like pushing yourself, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I learned that from him, and that kind of instilled some core values in myself
Yeah.
that I also, you know, put in my son. So,
Mm.
yeah, so many lessons, man.
Oh man, that's
These
that's
are,
beautiful.
yeah,
I'm really glad you opted to do this with me. I really
yeah.
am, because this is great. Tell me this. What unique joys and challenges have you experienced as a Black father? And how do you find support in your community and your role?
Yeah. Yeah, so the thing about being a Black father is, you know, raising a young Black man. And it's an interesting world that we live in. You know,
Yeah.
it's a lot to
Challenging.
navigate. So it's like it's one thing to raise a boy. It's one thing to raise a Black man.
Hmm.
Because I have to teach him all the different aspects of just being a human, being a good
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
You know, and I also have to teach him, you know, what it means to be Black.
Hmm.
And you know how to carry himself. I always teach my son, you know, I treat him like the king. You know,
Hmm.
my last name just happens to be King, and that's how we carry ourselves. You know, teach him to always be yourself, regardless of who's around or
Hmm.
what space you're in. You
Hmm.
know, trying to get him to that point where, you know, nothing can impenetrate who he's supposed to be and who he wants to be.
Okay.
Not letting people or things take him out of his character. I think as a Black man, it's essentially important
Hmm.
because we're always labeled certain ways. We're always told
Yeah.
how to feel or how not to feel,
Right.
or you know, you have this image when you look online or on
Right.
TV. You know, it's
Hmm.
always this persona. So you know, navigating all of these to being yourself. You know, staying true to your morals.
Hmm.
You know, putting family first. You know, moving out of love and kindness. But also discipline. You know, having confidence in yourself,
Right.
being, you know, focused and locked in. So yeah, it can be challenging. I
It can
feel
be
like
challenging.
as a dad, there's only so much I can do. I'm
Hmm.
not with him 24/7.
Right.
You know, there's a large period of his life where he's in the world, and you know, he's
Hmm.
around all these different influences. So the best thing I try to do for him is instill that foundation. I've give him an open space where we can talk to each other. You know, there's nothing that we can't talk about. I make that very
Good.
call.
Good.
I
Good.
want him to know that it's okay to feel in
Hmm.
this world. It's okay to express yourself. I teach him healthy ways to do that,
Hmm.
but also healthy ways to communicate about it.
Right.
You know, I didn't always feel like I could do that as a Black man growing up. I
Hmm.
didn't know how to talk about my emotions like that.
Right.
I had to learn that as an adult, how to
You have to
navigate
learn
that
those
in the hard
things.
way. You
Right.
know, I wish I had a platform like, okay, how do you really feel about this?
Right.
You know, I'm often told to stay in a child's place, or you know, that's,
Yeah.
you know, you're just in the background, not really understanding things.
Hmm.
I think it's very important as a Black man and a Black father is to teach the youth that how to understand things,
Hmm.
helping them understand things. It's okay to ask questions. You know, it's okay to, you know, step aside and let's have a conversation one on one. What's on your mind?
Right.
You know, what's going on? You know, being able to, you know, be sensitive enough to read. Okay, if something wrong.
Hmm.
You know, you could see if there's something off about, you know, your son or your
Right.
child. If something's bothering them, you can see
Hmm.
it in their expressions if you pay attention. So that's important, like being attentive, being open to that conversation. I think also being humble enough to, you know, I have accountability and I also can acknowledge when I'm wrong.
Mm.
You know, as a father, like even as a parent, you're not always going to be perfect.
Right.
You know, you learn as you are a parent.
Hmm.
You know, so there's a lot of things I learned from my son, or you know, different styles parenting styles I can learn.
Hmm.
But you know, I apologize to him if I'm wrong, or if I hurt his feelings, or
Mm.
you know, if I overstepped, or I didn't make him feel
Showing
heard.
accountability.
You know, and
Right.
then not only showing accountability, but next time applying that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, leading by that example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not easy, you know, being a black man in this world.
Right.
But I feel like with community, you know, being able to express yourself, I feel like that's a big thing that a lot of us can't do. And that's why I think we get some of the notion that we do get. Because we don't really have that space as much as, you know, we probably should.
Yeah.
To just express ourselves or just be ourselves.
Or just be ourselves.
You know,
yeah,
so
that's
I try to instill that in him very young, very confident kid.
Yeah.
You know, Caleb's he's very emotional. He can be sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I always give him the space to use his voice.
Yeah.
You know, to be himself. You know, whatever he's interested in or whatever's on his mind, like we could talk about it. You know, so it's being comfortable in your own skin, where he gets to this mindset where there's nothing that he can't do.
That's great.
Every day.
Man, that's beautiful to hear that, man. I can hear, I see the growth in him. I see the development.
Yeah.
Even the way he communicates with me.
Yeah.
I find it hilarious, you know, that he checks on me, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, shoot, you checking on your papa, man. I feel good. I got one question for you, and I got a follow-up question after this one.
Okay.
How do you hope to shape the narrative around Black fatherhood for your children and for the broader community?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is I want to show people, one, how important it is to play this role. And it's not an easy role, but it's such a rewarding one. Like I always tell people, fatherhood is my favorite. It's the absolute thing I love more than anything else is being a dad. There's nothing more that I love than that. Being able to shape a life, be able to have inspiration over the next generation and his generation. You know, all I want to do is, you know, spread love and build a better life for my son, better than what I had, and keep paying that forward. I always say, like, kind deeds can be contagious.
Yeah.
You know, building a man that's loving and generous and compassionate and brilliant and bright can have such an impact on a future generation. Eventually, he's going to have kids,
right?
Have eventually grandkids. You know, so you know you're extending.
Slow down, Speedy.
I know you're extending a lineage of men and extending a lineage of people that are eventually going to have families and impact the world. So I think it could be a chain effect. I think when you have, you know, great positive fathers in the community, they breed, you know, confident, strong children.
Positive, strong children.
You know, so you can continue that chain.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's very important, you know, trying to improve on yourself, you know, eliminating bad habits, building a stronger family unit. Can have such a long lasting effect on all of our communities. I think we need more leadership. I think we need more confident men. I think we need more men comfortable being themselves and expressing themselves. You know, these going to be future, you know, husbands and you know, boyfriends and you know, leaders in our community.
Gauntlet, yes.
You know, so I think it starts with just making good decisions and instilling good habits. You know, at an early age. You know, and allowing these children to be themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and showing them an example what healthy fatherhood, what healthy parenting looks like. You know, and breaking these trends that a lot of us were, you know, stuck on in the past or we're going through. You know, I don't think the world is easy on us, but together, I think we can be a lot more stronger.
I think we can be a lot more stronger, definitely.
You know, so I have hope for the future because, you know, I met a lot of good fathers, and you know, there are a lot more Black fathers present than I think is being alluded to.
Yeah,
we're very much present.
We're very much present. We just hide in the background because people don't talk to us like this on one-on-one.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, you know, it's important to, you know, keep spreading what we learn as we're learning ourselves.
Right.
You know, I always say I want to see others lift as I rise as well. So as I learn things throughout my parenting experience and talking to other parents about things, okay, you know, we tried this, but this really worked for me, or you know, different lessons that I could share,
right?
Or even just adversity, how we overcome that. You know, I think that's another way to spread that reach. You know, and it could trickle down, you know, to the kids and eventually their kids down the line. But you know, the goal is, you know, we can build up our families. You know, that's our household. Building up our families, you know, you can expand that network even farther, you know, across friends or acquaintances or even, you know, your kids' friends. And you know, I think people kind of underestimate how significant a small like conversation can change somebody's life.
Right.
You know, you never know how much people can relate to you. A lot of us are going through a lot of similar struggles.
Yes.
You know, and that's why I think like that togetherness really brings
people, that bond brings them close.
Yeah, I do.
I got one last question for you before we end this segment.
Mm-hmm.
How are you holding up on your mental?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in a really great spot mentally, and I'm really blessed to be where I'm at. I completely changed my approach to how I live life, down to like my morning routine. You know, how I carry myself every day. I pray a lot, multiple times a day.
Good.
Sometimes just randomly.
Well,
You
yeah.
know, a lot of what I
Gotta
pray
talk
for
to
is,
God.
you know, it's just gratitude.
Yeah.
It's thankfulness to be where I'm at, or have another opportunity for another day, or just having, you know, my health, having my spirit, having my energy to get up and do what I need to do. Every day I start my morning with prayers.
Nice.
And I started, you know, journaling more, and I do my affirmations in the morning.
Nice. Yeah.
So what I call my affirmations, like giving the world my superpowers. I tell everybody who I am,
right,
before anybody can tell me who I am.
Who you're not.
Yeah, who I'm not. Exactly. You know, so every single day I'm telling myself all these different characteristics, who I am, who I want to be, who I want to continue being. So I call that waking my spirit up. There's nothing
Right.
anyone can do, say, or any adversity is going to knock me off from being who I am. Because every day, you know, you are. I, you know, even started meditating, you know, especially when like life can get overwhelming. I feel like things are moving really fast.
Yeah.
Just slowing down.
Yeah.
I spend a lot more time intentionally outside. One of the things I want to do this year was connect more with nature. I think sometimes we need to separate away from things and just get fresh air. You know, get some sunlight, be by water, you know, allow yourself time to just process things. I think very, very intensely before I speak. You know, I think about the effect that, you know, my words or actions can have. My word is all I have, you know, so I make sure my actions resonate that. And I always try to lead by example, you know, so I feel like I I took some time to be alone, got comfortable being by myself, being aware of who I am, and also aware of like the world around me, understanding how I can make life work for me, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and, you know, intentionally taking that time to building my routine, building my habits, setting goals for myself. Like going to the gym is a wonderful for your mental health.
Yes.
I can second that 1,000 times. Writing down my, you know, journaling frequently makes me feel like I'm heard. I don't feel like this, I'm not being heard. You know, I'm being able to write down all my thoughts and, you know, process them in a healthy way. You know, so I'm grateful where I am on mental health. I feel really healthy. I'm sleeping well. I'm eating better.
Good.
You know, I'm in my best physical shape of my life. You know, and I'm also like just being intentional with everything I do. And I'm able to have a lot of conversations with other people as well, you know, to try to help them unlock the best version of themselves.
Right.
I mean, I recognize it's a journey, you know.
It is.
I don't stress over things I can't control. You know, I take time to process my feelings and my thoughts. And I recognize, like, you know, when I do need a ground, you know, which remind myself of who I am, like how to do that. For me, it's being around family. You know, when I feel overwhelmed, like, there's nothing more recharging than being around people that love you and care for you. You know,
and you can get a good meal.
Exactly. Exactly. For me, like, you know, sometimes
that always helps.
Right. Food is the way to the soul, man. And sometimes, like, you know, basketball is like that for me as well. You know, it can be therapy in a way, just like releasing everything. You know, sometimes you just gotta let stuff go and relock in. So yeah, I'm grateful where I'm at right now, and, you know, I'm excited to continue to learn every day. You know, I'm excited to keep growing, and, you know, just keep being honest with myself. You know, and looking myself in the mirror and loving who you are.
That's a huge one right there. You know what I mean? Being able to look yourself in the mirror every day. You know,
every day.
That was part of a book that we read some time ago. But that's very interesting that you added that piece in there. This is really good. Thank you. I appreciate you doing this for me. You know what I mean? Just to sit down and talk and share this, because I want to share this with my audience. You know what I mean? And then put it out there for them, because it's a conversation that continues. It's not a one shot deal. Even though Father's Day is just one day, this is an ongoing conversation. You know, I've met a lot of different men. We've had a lot of different conversations about men's health. You know, the psychology of Black men. That's really along the lines of the series that I've been working on. And this Building Brilliance is a part of it. So thank you for joining us for this episode of Building Brilliance Book Club. I'm your host, Brian Wilson. Stay tuned. We have some other great books coming up that are coming out of the woodworks. We'll see you on the next. Take it easy.
Take care, y'all.